All right. And then the final thing I want to do is each year at the start of one of these sessions, I just want to acknowledge that we all have a different level of experience with some of these topics. Um, we have most of you are from Husky Robotics. Some of you are not. And for some of you from Husky Robotics, this is the fourth time you've participated in one of these workshop series. So much of this material will be familiar, even though each year we look at it in a different way. And so the reason why I share that is keep in mind that some stuff will be familiar to you and some stuff will be brand new for others. And so when we do go into breakout rooms, which we'll do a couple of times this evening, um, keep that in mind. Model the professional skills that we are focused on throughout this series. Leave room and space for others to try to model those behaviors as well, and manage the airtime. Um, Also keep in mind that this is just like 1 hour on a Monday evening. And so w- there are many more opportunities to practice this throughout the entire preseason and the build season. All of these are opportunities to practice these techniques, to be curious and to get more help. So with that, um, let's jump right in. So the approach I took this year was to focus on three specific things I want all of you to be able to say, like, hey, I achieved this tonight when we're done. Um, I want you to be able to agree with the fact that uh, when you say I can share hypothetical examples and non-examples of team members exhibiting gracious professionalism. I want you to agree when you think I can explain what different leadership styles and strategies are appropriate, or why different leadership styles and strategies are appropriate in different situations. And finally, that you agree that you can list specific strategies that our team employs as we pursue excellence. So that's where we're headed. Um, so let's dive right in. I think it's important to define what we mean by team culture, and that's a great place to start. And so, team culture can be thought of as our beliefs and our behaviors. Both are important. So, it's the team's beliefs and behaviors to achieve a shared vision. And that's at the heart of what we're going to explore tonight. We are going to assume we have a shared vision and we're going to focus on the beliefs and behaviors. We will have an upcoming session where we focus on visions and objectives and goals and all of that, which is great. But we're going to assume for tonight, like, we have a shared vision. And so therefore, what are the beliefs and behaviors that can help us achieve it? So I think it's really important to always know the why. And that's going to be a theme throughout this year's professional skills workshop series. And that is, like, why is team culture important? And for those of you who are joining us from other teams, think about your own team's why, your North Star or stars that align your team. These are Husky Robotics team's objectives from last season, to maintain and build relationships with the community, to prepare the team for the future, to strengthen our robotics family, and to become a world-class robotics team. And a reasonable question is, what does culture have to do with these? Um, we can define really clear objectives. I think these are great objectives. We can outline a strategic plan to achieve each. But if we don't have a strong, positive team culture, we won't achieve them. And the members on our team won't have a positive experience. Imagine a swerve drive where every wheel is pointed in a different direction and that robot doesn't move, and that would be our team. And so I love this quote that's alleged to Peter Drucker, which says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay? We can have the best objectives and strategy to achieve those. And if the culture isn't there, it's not going to matter. So to get things going and to kind of re-energize our brains after potentially a long day here, want to think, have you all think a little bit about our team beliefs and behaviors, or your team's beliefs and behaviors. And so we're going to do this activity in the chat. And the way this is going to work is that you can type your answer, but don't hit enter yet. We're going to give everyone some time to actually type what they think, and then we'll all hit enter together. I'd encourage everyone to type at least one thing. If you're new to FRC, you can pick teams, beliefs, and behaviors that make a strong culture from another organization that you've been involved with or are familiar with. One would answer totally fine. There's some examples here of different ways that our beliefs and behaviors will help us achieve our goals, but I want you to come up with your own as we go. So make sure I've got all the right windows open here. There we go. So take another like 20 seconds. Think of a belief or behavior you think helps us achieve our goals. All right, and then go ahead and click enter, and you can keep your eye on the chat, and I'll call out some of these. So I see stand up, that's from our agile methodologies. Sharing the good and the bad, love it. It's okay to ask questions. Working together, everyone is welcome. There's stand up again, teamwork, more good or bad stuff, embracing all of it, inclusive environment, sub-team training in the preseason. This is great. These are really great ideas. Being inclusive to people of all skills, playing two games at once. We'll talk more about that later. Focusing on student leadership. This is great, great, great stuff. We're going to touch on some of these tonight, but we don't have time to talk about all of these, but these are all excellent. So this is great. For me, when I started working on revising this for this year, I have found that sometimes the longer you're involved in an organization, the harder it is to define those beliefs and behaviors that define the organization's culture. So this is now my 18th year coaching Huskie Robotics. And so I struggled with that. Some of it just seems like habit and normal. And so I had to spend some time reflecting and observing and capturing all the beliefs and behaviors that I could think of over the last couple of months. And I ended up with a somewhat overwhelming list. And so I organized them into these three categories. I felt like all of the things I had observed and thought about and heard about could be organized into gracious professionalism, leadership, and pursuing excellence. So I've decided in the time we have together today to touch on each of these three and to explore them a little bit further. And that will form the foundation together that makes up a team's culture. So let's look at the first one. I think we got to start with gracious professionalism. How could we not? First defines gracious professionalism. The official definition is a way of doing things that encourages high quality work, emphasizes the value of others, and respects individuals in the community. I am a huge fan of Woody Flowers, co-founder of First, and I like how he phrased this, which was people should do things in a way that would make their grandmothers proud. I think that captures it really well as too. Um, I think there are many different ways to exhibit gracious professionalism, and three that I think are important and that I want to highlight this evening is having compassion, active welcoming, and beginning with the end in mind. I guess I should clarify that. These are three I want to mention. The third one, begin with the end in mind, we will dive into more in an upcoming crucial conversation session later this fall. So we're going to focus primarily on the first two, compassion and active welcoming. We've talked about compassion before and comparing and contrasting it with pity and sympathy and empathy and compassion. And you can see each of those defined here relatively simply. A lot of times we focus on empathy, and empathy is really important. We all need to be empathetic. For those of you who are teenagers, that is particularly challenging sometimes because you develop empathy over a long period of time. So not to get too technical, but your prefrontal cortex is still developing into your mid-20s. And that's where a lot of this takes place. So this is a process for teenagers. For boys in particular, empathy often regresses during their early teenage years. They kind of lose some of that and then have to gain it back, and that makes it more challenging. But despite these challenges of building your empathy, what I want to emphasize this evening is that Yes, it's great when we can see through another's eyes, and it's important to be able to feel their pain or their struggle, but that is insufficient. We want to do all those things, and we need to ask ourselves, what am I going to do about it? And that's what sets compassion apart. Okay. So, my favorite definition of compassion is empathy in action. We're doing something because we're empathetic toward another. And that shows up everywhere on our team and everywhere in life as well. The second aspect of gracious professionalism I really wanted to focus on is active welcoming. And last year, Jesse, one of our mentors, shared this idea of active welcoming with all of us in the team culture workshop from last year. Um, and so, if we want to have a strong team where everyone that wants to participate is not only allowed, but empowered to do so, there are small ways we can think and act that can have a big impact. And being tolerant is not enough. Just like being empathetic isn't enough, we have to be compassionate. Being tolerant is not enough. We need to be actively welcoming. It's not enough just to be nice. It's not enough just to be accepting. To truly make sure everyone feels welcomed, especially those who have traditionally not been welcomed in these spaces, it requires active welcoming. Um, it's about people feeling they're noticed, people feeling they're valued, people feeling they're included. It's about us being intentional with our actions so people feel that way. A lot of the ways we can do this, a lot of these active welcoming strategies are little things that can have a big impact. We can just say each other's names. Instead of just saying, hey, we can say, hey, Noga. Um, instead of just and then we can actually remember and celebrate and thank each other as we do things. So even little things like, hey, thank you for helping with that. Um, being consistent with our positive feedback, even if it's small, even if maybe it didn't work out great, but we still had the effort there. Thank you for offering to help with that, even if like maybe help wasn't needed. Um, we often don't think or we often don't say what we're thinking when things are going well. We just keep doing the well things. Um, the problem with that is when we're not actively providing feedback to each other, it is common where the absence of feedback is interpreted negatively. Um, so if I share an idea with you and your response is, yeah, and that's it, I might assume that you don't like my idea, or that you don't want to hear my idea, or that I shouldn't participate in this activity that we're in the middle of. That probably was not your intent. That's just how I interpreted in the absence of any feedback. Um, Now that said, there's a shared responsibility here, and that's what's so wonderful about these workshops is that by all of us experiencing these, it's not just the leaders on the team; it's everybody, and so we have that shared responsibility where if I notice myself feeling that way, like, oh, I don't think that idea was well received, I could get curious. I could explicitly ask for feedback. I'm like, tell me more. What do you think about this? Um, and that way I can be more clear with my expectations. And we'll go into this more in a future session when we talk about 200% accountability. Um, Another way we can support others is when we explain things, we can start at a high level. We can, when we're using technical terms, pair them with their definitions so that those listening can learn. Um, so, for example, if we're talking about what figuring out the design of the electrical cavity in the robot, we can say we're going to place the Robo Rio. The Robo Rio is the brain, the computer of the robot. We're going to put it here in the CAD model, which is the 3D model that we're looking at. And that helps everyone better understand what's going on, and they don't feel left out because they don't understand the vocabulary. So we want to all of us here want to model these behaviors actively in our meetings, in our lives. And so we want to have that patience. We want to give each other that respect. We want to show each other compassion. We want to listen actively. We want to ask questions and be curious. And we want to make it safe. And how we make it safe and how that relates to active welcoming will warrants its own session on crucial conversations, which we'll hit in a few weeks as well. So some previews for that. All right, a couple traps we have to watch out for with active welcoming. Um, if we assume something about someone else, even if we do it subconsciously, it can have a negative impact. Most people are not blatantly discriminatory, but we have to watch out for those unconscious biases. And so we need to get our brains thinking to challenge some of these common traps that we might otherwise fall into. Um, and so here's a bunch of examples. Just because someone is new to the team or younger than others, it doesn't mean they're naive. Okay, we need to remind ourselves of that. Just because someone is smaller doesn't mean they're weak. Just because someone is struggling doesn't mean they're incapable. Okay? When it comes to this one, watch out and make sure that you're not assuming someone needs help just because they appear to be struggling. Always ask permission. Don't take tools out of someone's hand. Don't grab the mouse from the computer. Don't take what they're carrying away from them. Instead, ask, do you need help? And if they say no, respect that. That's their choice. Don't assume what they might need. Um, don't assume that just because someone has a bad idea or you have a bad idea that you only have bad ideas. We all have bad ideas. That's how we get to the good ideas. Just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they're not interested. Um, they might just not feel safe yet to engage. They might just not want to engage with you because they don't know you yet, right? Um, if no issues were brought up, definitely don't think there are no issues. There are probably issues. We see that all the time. So keep these in mind. Watch out for these traps because these are assumptions that we can unconsciously make if we're not looking out for them, and they can have a negative impact on our teammates. So, all right, we're going to try something new this year. We are going to have a breakout room, and I'll get those going in a moment. So, explain the structure of the breakout room first. We're going to split into breakout rooms. I'm going to set a timer for you'll be in the breakout room for a total of 4 minutes. You'll see the timer count down from 3, and then there'll be 1 minute like to wrap things up before you're thrown back in here. Okay, so that's how the Zoom breakout rooms work. What I want each breakout room to focus on for those first 3 minutes is what it's number one on your screen here. I want you to discuss with each other, to share some hypothetical examples and non-examples of team members exhibiting gracious professionalism, compassion, active welcoming, starting with the end in mind, if that concept is familiar with you. That's 3 minutes of discussion. When you see it go to only, you get the warning and you only have the 1 minute left, I want you to shift gears and do something different. I want you to do something a little bit more individual. I want you to set a specific goal for yourself. If you feel comfortable, share it with those in your breakout room. When we share our personal goals, research says we're more likely to achieve them. So if you're comfortable, share it with your breakout room. But you can also hold yourself accountable. And this is a technique I use with some of the teachers that I coach. And so what you're going to do is you're going to open up a tab in Gmail and you're going to send yourself an email. And so you're going to type in your goal and you're going to think, when do I need to check in with myself on this goal? Is this a goal for like next week during the preseason? Is this a goal for kickoff? Is this a goal for like a competition? Like whatever it happens to be, delay send, schedule send that email from Gmail so it pops up in your inbox and you will hold your future self accountable. So we're going to give that a try here. So before we break up, because I'm flying solo tonight, so it's going to take me just a moment to do the breakout rooms. Think about your answer to number one as I do the breakout rooms really quick. All right, everyone, welcome back. Apologies, that was a little longer than I expected. I forgot to click through all the right buttons in Zoom to bring you all back. I do want to take a couple of minutes though and hear from some of the rooms about let's focus on the positive. So what are some examples of team members exhibiting gracious professionalism that you'd like to share with all of us. So you can click on the little button to raise your hand, and then you can unmute and share your group's idea. There you go. Go ahead, Lauren.
So one thing that we said is like if you're working on something and you see a new member who's kind of just sitting there not really doing anything, like putting in the effort to pull them in and teach them what you're doing.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely. Other examples from other rooms that you'd like to share with us? Right up, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the same room as Lauren, but something we talked about how is like, for example, like someone who's like in the pits is really busy, and like they're obviously getting asked a lot of questions, like they're being like gracious and professional by just like maybe saying like, can you give me 5 minutes? I'll get back to you and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that one. Sometimes, yeah, asking people when would be a good time for the question, right? Braden, what do you think? What is your group thinking?
My sister was talking about how when, for example, in software, if you're explaining something to someone, don't assume they know everything, but also don't assume they know nothing. So like make sure you understand their problem and get a grasp of how much of the problem they understand first, and then tackle the problem with them.
Yeah, no, I love that. Let's see, let's do just one more. What was it Rishi?
Yeah, so what I talked about with my group was communication. I think communication is especially important within a team because not everyone always knows what's going on. And I think just an example of that could be kind of what Arnav said, but a lead communicating to other team members saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Even if you guys didn't come to the meeting, I hope you guys are all caught up." So yeah.
Yeah, great. All right, I'm going to keep moving on just because we'll see how well I'm managing time this evening. Um, right, so let's shift gears to leadership, and we employ a large number of leadership techniques on this team, and other teams do as well. In fact, when we started these sessions, we focused only on leadership skills. But today, I want to focus not so much on the details of some of these, but on why different leadership styles and strategies are appropriate in different situations. That said, some of these things are new to us. So I do want to at least touch on it a little bit in terms of um, like EDGE. EDGE is something we refer to a lot. EDGE is an acronym. And as you can see on the screen here, it focuses on explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. And there's definitions for each of those steps. Along the theme of why we use this and when we use it and why it might vary in different situations, a couple of things I want to highlight is both the teacher and the student have to both decide when to move to the next step. So there's some communication and consensus there of now we're moving from explain to demonstrate, or demonstrate to guide, or guide to enable. Another thing to remember too, and this gets back to some of what was just shared a moment ago by you all, each new situation or new skill warrants being in a different place in terms of edge. It's not like one person always needs demonstrate right now. It depends on what we're doing. Okay. Um, Also keep in mind that when we do get to enable, which is where we want to get to, resources still have to be provided. We can't just set someone loose and be like, oh, you're enabled and you have nothing you need to do the job. We have to make sure the resources are there for them to be successful. I think of Edge as an investment, and we'll connect to this later, but it's a way of investing in each other and investing in our team's future. Back to this idea of 200% accountability, I also think Edge is everyone's responsibility. And what I love about sharing these ideas with everyone on the team is that we all know what Edge is. And so either the teacher or the student can point out when maybe we've skipped a step. So I might say to someone who's trying to help me, I don't understand why we're doing this, right? Oh, we need to shift back to explain. Or I I know I've done this before, but I don't really remember how. Can you demonstrate this again? Okay, let's move back to demonstrate. Um, or it's great that you think you can delegate this to me, but I need you to guide me first. I'm not ready for this yet. Um, and so that's the response. We can all play that role in making sure that we're at the appropriate place when it comes to edge. So edge is one technique we use. Two other broader ideas relate to servant leadership and situational leadership. Um, there are always opportunities for all of us to be servant leaders with each other. And it's really a mindset. And from my perspective, it's allowing the team to keep moving forward. What can I do in this moment to help the team move forward? How can I help handle interruptions? How can I remove obstacles to make others successful? We mentors on the team think about this all the time, right? Like our job as mentors is to like remove obstacles to allow you all to move forward. And very often, the way we do that, or we strive to do that, we're certainly not perfect, is that we listen and respond thoughtfully to you all. And that's how we know what obstacles need to be removed and how to help you keep moving forward. The last couple of years, we've been also pairing servant leadership with the concepts of situational leadership. And the idea of situational leadership is a leader needs to adapt their style based on many different factors. So based on the type and complexity of the task that needs to be done, that warrants a different approach. Based on the skills and motivation of those working on the task, that warrants a different approach. Based on the urgency or safety concerns with the task, that warrants a different approach. Um, and and what makes situational leadership challenging is there's no one style that's always right. You as a leader have to adapt to the situation. You have to figure out where the people that I'm working with and partnering with on this, where are we in terms of skills? Where are we in terms of motivation? How are we doing at the moment? In a future session, the last session this year will be on crucial influence, and that will focus on how can we proactively set teams up for success by addressing all of these factors in a proactive way. Um, and I think it's helpful. I'll share an example of this. Right now, we're in the preseason, and so we've been focused a lot on servant leadership. We've been focused a lot on new member training that was shared out a moment ago in the chat. We've been focused a lot on edge as new members join our sub teams and they learn the skills they need to know. But a different example I want to share occurred last year at the first championship. So last year at the first championship, during the playoff on Curie, our former captain, Jay, who's now graduated, was pulled into the pit to repair the IGUS track in the field side pit during the Curie playoffs. And a reasonable question to ask is like, well, why Jay? Jay was our project manager captain. Like, we didn't need any project manager help at that moment. Jay didn't even have a button to let himself into the pit, right? And yet he was the one pulled in to do that. And the reason was that was the appropriate decision from a situational leadership perspective in that moment. We had like 90 seconds to fix the robot before it had to go play for the next match. And Jay was the most skilled person, student or mentor, on our team for performing that task. So he didn't see that as an opportunity to use edge and demonstrate to me how to fix the obvious trap. No one shadowed him. He just got it done and the robot got back on the field. And that's appropriate in that type of a scenario. That would not be appropriate this week as we're like working with new members and teaching them new skills. So the situations warrant the leadership style. All right. We're going to do another breakout room. Similar structure as before, but the discussion point is different. So we're still going to have a total of 4 minutes, 3 minutes for your discussion, 1 minute to set your personal goal and email it to yourself. Do the email step. It really works. Trust me. But what I want the discussion to be about is explaining why different leadership styles and strategies are appropriate in different situations. Okay. Um, and that will be, and then we'll share as a group, we'll share some of those ideas out when we come back. So I am going to get the rooms open again. Might have to shuffle things around slightly, but here we go. All right, welcome back, everyone. Um, let's have a few rooms share out what they talked about. So who'd like to share why different leadership styles and strategies are appropriate in different situations? Good, Arnav.
Yeah, so one thing we talked about in terms of just like different leadership is like um sometimes like being a good leader is taking on and like putting your foot forward and doing the tasks that you guys might be assigned. But then other situations, for example, like preseason, like being a leader doesn't mean going out and showing everyone what to do. It means taking a step back and letting people like experiment and try and then helping them learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah, providing space for everyone to learn. Love it. Evie, what did you all talk about?
Yeah, it was brought up in our room about how it can really be beneficial to teach somebody. And somebody brought up the quote about like you teach a man to fish, they will eat forever or something. And then, but if you only show him, or if you, I don't know, I'm messing up the quote now, but um,
Okay.
I thought it represented the situation well, where it can like actually save you time and really help that other person if you teach them how to do it and take that time to do it rather than just doing it yourself.
Yeah, back to investing in others, which invest in our team. Love it. Other rooms have things to share? All right. Well, then our final section for this evening is focused on our pursuit of excellence. We pursue excellence through our dispositions and our strategies. There are many. Um, I've put on the slide just 4 dispositions followed by a specific example. Um, One thing that I think is important here in the context of pursuing excellence is that we do not need to be perfect in our pursuit of excellence. Perfectionism is another trap. Um, Engineering is all about continuous improvement and solving problems, but applying that to ourselves as humans can lead to chronic stress, burnout, imposter syndrome, unhealthy shift in the why we do something or why we might avoid doing something. So while perfectionism can be a driver for us to put forth effort, and sometimes we're successful because of that, it can also drive us in the wrong direction. So we want to watch out for that. What it can end up doing is it can be paralyzing, where we don't start because we're afraid we're going to not be able to do it perfectly. We can spend way too much time on something where it was already good enough. We can end up a lot more stressed, as an example, which none of us need. Um, so that's not to say we don't have to put in effort to be great. We do, and we do want to have high standards for ourselves and our teams. We just don't want to let perfectionism drive. Um, a growth mindset is all about avoiding that trap of perfectionism. It's about realizing it's a process. We're learning. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn from them. The more we practice, the better we get. And that's what we want to keep in mind. So actually think all of these dispositions help us avoid that trap of perfectionism. So let's look at 2 of the examples, just because we only have so much time. Celebrate failure was something that was shared in the chat at the very beginning. And that's something we've tried to be more intentional with. And we still have room to grow, but I think we're headed in the right direction. Um, and that is, I think, a great example of how we can develop our growth mindset, how we can, yes, work hard and have high expectations, and be open and be flexible, Those are all good things, but really having the belief that our qualities personally can change, and we can get smarter and more skilled and develop those abilities. And one way we model that for others is in the celebration of failure. Um, and so we can start to see how these different elements are all connected to each other. Um, so celebrating failure and admitting our mistakes, that's a way of practicing our servant leadership. So we start to see the connections among these different areas related to our culture. Cue games is a term that came up in the chat as well at the start of this session. And the idea of two games is we're always playing two games. And you can think of First Robotics as a series of resource limited, goal directed, cooperative games of invention and communication. That's what we do every year. And we're focused on this season, well, the one that will start in January, but we're also focused on the next season. And of course, we prioritize the first, but we can't ignore the second. We have to find the balance, and that balance shifts constantly. Right now, we're very much invested in the next season, the one that will start in January, and that balance will shift as we go. And so we need to continue to keep that in mind. Our last two examples is that ways we pursue excellence. And I'll be honest, I struggled on how to define this one. So I came up with we make hard decisions selflessly. Um, and what I mean by that is we believe as a team, the priority is the team's objectives, and it's not about us as individuals. And that can be hard on the ego. We avoid what's called the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is because I've invested time and money and effort in this thing, I gotta keep going until it works because I put all of this in there. And that can just dig yourself in a bigger hole sometimes. Again, here's that connection. We resist that perfectionist mindset. Good enough is good enough. Um, and here's where the and is can be so important. I may have done amazing work, and it may be the best decision for the team to set that aside. And that requires a lot of resilience and a lot of maturity. Every year, I am personally impressed with what the students on Huskie Robotics do in this area. In 2024, in the middle of build season, we decided to drop our dual intake requirement, and we redesigned most of the robot in a couple of days. It was an extraordinary task, and people had spent a huge amount of time on the CAD and the design and the prototypes that we threw out. This past year in 2025, we realized on a Saturday, or maybe it was a Friday night, that our robot was substantially overweight, like a lot. And you all worked to cut over 20 pounds off the robot in a couple of days, which was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And seeing you all set aside your efforts and things you've done and redo things and do things in a different way because you're focused on the team's objectives is just so incredible to watch. The final one to share is breadcrumbs. For those of you on Huskie Robotics, Mr. John shared this at a culture moment during dinner a couple of weeks ago. Breadcrumbs is related to playing the two games. They're very similar. And the breadcrumbs is basically several things. It's leaving yourself and your future self that reminder, that note of where to start next. But I think it's broader than that too. If we look at it in terms of like both games we're playing, it's not just about helping your future self or others next week. It's also about helping people next year. It's having the mindset of what did I just do? And is there a way I can capture that and share that, which will make it easier for someone next time, whether next time is next week or whether next time is next year. I love this quote that a shortcut borrows resources from the future, which have to be repaid with interest. And so breadcrumbs takes a lot of discipline, but it can be so powerful And one of the reasons why we're successful in our pursuit here of excellence is that um, we're standing upon this institutional knowledge that people have left for us by leaving these breadcrumbs. All right. We don't have time for a final breakout rooms. We're going to use the chat instead. And so I want you to share an example of your team, 3061, or your own team, using these strategies of celebrating failures, two games, making hard decisions selflessly, breadcrumbs, whatever it happens to be. Start typing now, but don't hit enter yet. Just get it prepped, and then we'll flood the chat here in 20 seconds and see what we all think of as examples. If you're still typing, finish your thought. But if you're ready, go ahead and hit enter and keep an eye on the meeting chat and see what pops up here. I'm going to share some of them as they come flying across. Open Alliance. We talked about that last Wednesday. Love it. Documenting tasks for future leaders. Doing a full climber redesign for Midwest last year, for sure. Breadcrumbs and linear every day. Documenting spot code and procedures. Ooh, yeah. More documentation for future members, keeping track of what to do for ourselves at the next meeting, celebrating failure when the code doesn't work the first time you write it, but you debug it and it works. Code never works the first time. That's great. Accept and learn from failures with some of our outreach efforts, like Husky Adapt. Cutting a feature. Yeah, it's hard to cut a feature before a competition. Um, Update our bumper making guide. Oh my goodness, we have learned so much about making bumpers. That is fantastic. Can coder and standardizations, failures and revamps. Yeah, and I have a feeling we're going to hear more about that soon, which is great. All right, those are wonderful examples. I love this. We are nearly out of time, but I wanted to share one final quote with you, which I think is so important. Um, the health of any relationship, team, or organization can be measured by the lag time between identifying and discussing problems. And this is from one of the co-authors of Crucial Accountability, which we'll reference more in a future session. I think this is so true. And I know personally, and I try to be like super patient, but sometimes when I get worried, it's really worried, but sometimes I feel frustrated. It's because I'm like, ooh, why didn't we know this sooner? What about our culture is an obstacle for this information getting shared to the right people who need to know it? It's really, if I'm ever having this conversation with you, it's not about the issue. It's about what obstacles do we need to remove in our culture as a team. So when we have issues like this, they make it to the right people really quickly. That's really what the focus is on. It's all about playing that second game. So things coming up. We intentionally held this session earlier than we have in the past because we thought it would be helpful to focus on team culture before we as a team, Husky Robotics, goes to Twist this weekend. So that's why we held this workshop today. Our next workshop is going to be on October 27th, and it's going to focus on vision and goals. And then the following Monday, the captains will lead a refinement of the goals, maybe not so much the vision and the objectives, but of the goals. And there'll be more to come on that. Those are intentionally positioned so that we will have had the experience of RoboTier Rumble as a team and can reflect upon that experience as we shift our perspective from off-season Reefscape events to the upcoming build season. And then the following 3 weeks, we have 3 more sessions. We have a brand new one for you all this year on workshop organizing and decluttering. And then the week after that, we will hit the familiar topic of crucial conversations. And the week after that, we'll hit the not quite as familiar, but topic of crucial influence. So that's where we're headed. What I want to leave with you all, and I will put this in the chat so you can pull it up right now. This is a link to our Keep, Fix, Try reflection document, and you all are able to edit it. There are sections there to focus on ideas for potentially brand new sessions for next year. If you have any of those now or later, please share that. General things about any of the session as a whole, certainly capture those, but also specifically anything about this session on team culture that we should keep or fix or try. We mentors appreciate all of this feedback as we plan these each year. So that said, please take a moment either tonight or tomorrow, but before it seeps out of your brain, to leave us some feedback to help make this better in the future as we play both games. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great night.